Sometimes a single moment can change everything. It was a rainy October night in a dimly lit lounge in Istanbul. Lost in philosophical debates, I barely noticed the music until something pulled me in. Maybe it was a coincidence, but it felt like the music had chosen me. I walked to the turntable where an old school DJ was spinning Basic Channel, and in that moment, everything shifted. Later that night in my hotel room, I couldn't shake the feeling. For weeks after, I immersed myself in records, soundscapes, and ferry rides. My curiosity turned into a passion, and that passion became my master's thesis. That thesis evolved into a book. As a PhD scholar in music sciences, my exploration of dub techno continues. But let me say this up front. While this video has a lot of background and research behind it, it's not a dry academic lecture. My goal is to bring out the creative spark in everyone, to make things more understandable, more real, and more inspiring. Everything in this video is based on my latest article, Noise as a Spectre in Dub Techno, which was recently published in Dancecult journal. The article looks at noise in dub techno from different angles, philosophical, technical, and more. If you're interested, there's a link below. Oh, by the way, a lot of what you'll see here and in my other videos comes directly from my book. It's a deep dive into dub techno, covering its history, sound, and production techniques. If you want to explore the genre further and get a better understanding of its many layers, I'd encourage you to check it out. Link in the description. This video covers a wide range of topics, including the philosophy of noise, its technical aspects in electronic music, and its connection to natural soundscapes. I'll also demonstrate how to use noise in your own music. Feel free to use the timestamps to skip around and find the sections that interest you the most. Before we go further, I want to thank everyone who's been following along and supporting the channel. Your comments, messages, and feedback mean a lot to me. It's those interactions that keep me going and make this all worthwhile. So, thank you for being part of this journey. Take a moment to reflect. What if the static, crackle, or hiss in your favorite track is more than just noise? What if it's a ghost, an echo of the past haunting the present? How would this change the way we think about music? Let's explore two fascinating concepts, noise and hauntology, particularly through the lens of dub techno. These ideas might sound a bit abstract, but they reveal how sound shapes our experience of time, memory, and emotion in ways we might not even notice. This video is based on my research, where I've reviewed the literature extensively to understand how noise, often dismissed as mere background, actually holds philosophical depth. In everyday terms, noise is any unwanted sound, something that disturbs the clarity of what we want to hear. But in dub techno and many experimental music genres, noise is welcomed, even celebrated. Rather than being a flaw, it becomes a key component of the music's texture. Noise is often viewed as a disruptor, but in dub techno, it creates texture. It bridges the organic and mechanical, immersing listeners in a sonic landscape filled with the rich imperfections of sound. Noise has a deeper philosophical aspect as well. Thinkers like Jacques argue that noise is inherently political. In his work, The Political Economy of Music, he describes how music organizes noise, and in doing so, reflects society's power structures. In dub techno, noise isn't just a sound, it's a statement. It challenges the idea of what music should be, opening up new possibilities for what music can be. Now let's dive into hauntology, a term coined by the philosopher Jacques Derrida in his 1993 work, Spectres of Marx. Hauntology is a play on the word ontology and refers to how the past continues to haunt the present. Instead of being confined to history, the past lingers, influencing how we experience the now, like a ghost that refuses to disappear. Hauntology describes how old sounds, styles, and even technologies persist in the music of today. But it's more than just nostalgia. It's about the dislocation of time, where the present feels infiltrated by echoes of the past. It's a blending of eras, creating an atmosphere where the listener experiences a kind of temporal distortion. This is especially relevant in dub techno, where delay, reverb, and static create soundscapes that feel both immediate and ancient, present and distant. Mark Fisher expanded on Derrida's hauntology in his influential essays, arguing that the early 21st century suffers from a kind of temporal malaise. In Fisher's view, popular culture, including music, has lost its ability to imagine radical futures. Instead, it's stuck recycling the past, leading to what he calls the slow cancellation of the future. Fisher points out that much of modern electronic music feels haunted by its history, and this is particularly evident in dub techno. With its layers of echo and reverb, dub techno captures this sense of time's collapse. It's as if the music is reaching back to the 1990s, even the 1960s reggae sound systems, while still sounding futuristic. Fisher might argue that dub techno is haunted by these past sounds, unable to fully move forward because it's constantly pulling those ghosts into the present. So how do noise and hauntology work together? Dub techno is a perfect example of how these two concepts intertwine to create a unique, almost philosophical soundscape. In this genre, noise isn't just filler. It's a ghostly presence, a reminder of older technologies and recording practices. The crackle of vinyl or the hiss of tape doesn't just evoke a time when music was made differently. It brings that past into the present, making us feel the temporal tension between now and then. The past isn't dead in dub techno, it's alive, haunting the listener through the sonic imperfections that fill each track. This is where hauntology comes in. By emphasizing these imperfections, by allowing noise to be heard rather than removed, dub techno creates a dialogue between past and present. The sounds of malfunction or distortion aren't just errors, they're specters of an analog era, evoking a time before digital perfection. These sonic imperfections remind us of a different world, one where the physicality of music, vinyl records, cassette tapes, was an essential part of the listening experience. Dub techno is a genre that's stuck in a temporal loop. Rather than forging ahead into new sonic territories, it continually revisits the past, using noise as a way to remind us of what has been lost in our quest for digital clarity. In Fisher's words, this creates a kind of nostalgia for the future, where the music feels like it belongs to a time that never fully arrived. So, when we listen to dub techno, we're not just listening to music, we're listening to history. We're hearing the echoes of old sounds, technologies, and ideas. But we're also hearing the future, or at least the future that might have been. Noise becomes a medium of memory, while hauntology ensures that the past is never truly gone. It's always there, just beneath the surface, shaping our experience of the present. Now your perspective on noise has shifted a bit, hasn't it? Let's explore how to apply this knowledge in a real-world production environment. Before we begin, I want to clarify that this isn't a tutorial. My goal here is simply to share my workflow and approach to sound. Just like in my previous videos, I tried to produce a straightforward track here. In fact, someone in the community section suggested that I cover the more ambient side of dub techno. So I aim to stay within the framework of modern ambient techno, at least in part, for this video. As you can see, the arrangement is organized into 3 main groups: stabs, kicks and bass, and noise. There's also a drum layer. and a 3/4 Kalimba instrument. These are just like spices in the mix. So, let's dive into the sample at hand. This will give me a chance to share my personal perspective on noise integration. First, I created a stab layer. There's an arrangement here based on the principle of spontaneous movement. I synthesized a sound with 2 oscillators, applied a dynamic bandpass, and modulated the release with an LFO. I also used a decapitator to add a touch of saturation to the stab sound. Another essential element here is the unison setting on Polymod. I went with random positioning because it sounds good to my ears. Then, a second stab layer. My intention here was to set up a call and response relationship between the stabs. As you can see, the spacing is quite wide, and I'm at 107 beats per minute, which contributes to a more peaceful ambient feel. Besides the wave shape, everything else in the process chain is the same. It's a pretty primitive chain. For the third layer, I used a sample, a shaker, to bring out that specific texture. To give the sound more life, I sent it to a delay send channel with a 1/8 note dotted delay effect. This slipped my notice. The spatial effect here is derived from the send channels. I'll explain soon. At this point, rather than going into the details of how I process noise, I'll just convey the main idea. I've made both detailed videos on this topic and a Udemy course, The Art of Noise, covering noise's philosophy, history, recording, and processing methods. You can use the link in the description to enroll with a 20% discount. Let's continue. The first layer in the noise group is a hum noise. I used a low-cut filter to eliminate rumble. And then applied filter modulation with Volcano 3. Don't hesitate to use presets. If you're new, make it easier, not harder. This way, I achieved a rhythmic structure. There's a resonator at the end too, and I have a long video on resonators if you're interested. I set E3 as the resonance zone because I wanted the arrangement to revolve around this note. Let's listen together. The second noise layer is a vinyl crackle sample sliced with a simpler. I aim to create a rhythmic narrative by slicing the crackle sample and programming a basic sequence. This would complement the main drum pattern with its distinctive spiky sound. A low cut and flanger follow, as the flanger effect works well to create a hazy sound in slower tempo tracks, at least in my opinion. I used a compressor to narrow the dynamic range. It's a more solid track now. Added a room reverb too, which I'll explain shortly. Again, let's listen together. Quite complimentary. I like the result. The third layer was made from a hiss sound. Here's what it sounded like initially. When I first heard it, I wanted a sweep effect. I found a preset effect that added a nice touch and quickly gave me the impact I wanted. Let's talk about the ambient noise layer, which I think is really important. In a previous video, I shared details about creating a musical atmosphere. I'm really into this concept lately, and I love listening to music with this kind of spatial sound. I recorded a sample from a cafe. By placing the entire arrangement in a virtual venue, we can create a more immersive sound. A low cut, a subtle rhythmic filter modulation, and then a resonator focused on the E1 note. The next EQ was added for slight tweaks. Let's listen in context. In this case, the context itself is the ambient noise. Remember, temporal dislocation. One of the key elements that create spatial coherence across this large soundscape is the send channels. For example, the B send has an instance of roar centered around noise, along with a flanger that delivers the dub delay effect I wanted. On the other channel, everything is the same, aside from minor differences in drive and direct input. But the shimmer reverb is the key here. It amplifies the delays in the send channels and disperses that motion across a large area. Let's add a kick with a soft attack and boomy quality. The root note is E. I'm adding a bass line with light drive. I like the blend of subsine and glide. Let's listen. Although the noise layers already provide a percussive effect, I want to reinforce this narrative with a drum pattern, specifically a drum machine layer that complements the crackle. I chose Addictive Drum's drum machine library, though the specific choice isn't critical. Then I added a limiter amplifier, followed by SIDE, a high-frequency processor. These elements provide a crisp, stable drum layer. The LFO is modulating the delay send level using a random wave shape. Remember, spontaneous modulation. Let's bypass the room reverb. My intention here was to pull the drum pattern into a spatial effect that complements the cafe ambiance. It's a small touch, but pleasant. Finally, I added a 3/4 kalimba layer. Polyrhythmic structures are enjoyable and serve as an ancient way to break up monotony in rhythmic arrangements. I processed this layer with Flanger, phaser, distortion, and 1/16 echo. At this point, we can think of the track as existing on two levels, tonal and noise. Aligning these two with the right choices is a creative part of the arrangement process. This is just one idea for you to explore. You can grab the ALS project and multitrack files on Patreon to dive in and explore your own ideas. I love receiving remixes. It's always a thrill to hear your unique take on my work. If you decide to develop and arrange the project further, I might even compile and release some of your creations. Did you notice? The headphone experience is crucial for my videos because I put effort into the sound layers. That's why I include this reminder at the beginning of each video. Recently, I've received feedback that it's become an icon for our community, so I've turned it into something wearable. If you'd like to support me, you can purchase it. This will inspire me to continue focusing on these videos, allowing me to dedicate more time to them than to my academic and personal projects. That's everything for now. As always, love from the other side of the world.